immediately thinking, we need to write something about corporate venturing because we believe it's such a vital part of an open innovation strategy. And also, I think at the time and space we are right now, what we're seeing, what companies are doing, we also see a lot of companies struggling with it. We also felt it was a good moment to also show a little bit what is out there and what are the different ways, even within the smaller domain of corporate venturing, that companies can use. So that's how the chapter came into being, but it's also a culmination, I would say, from our collaboration over the past 20 years.
It's an amazing combination and complementarity. Seems so interesting, no? So this leads us to understand what's this chapter about. Yeah.
So the chapter, you already mentioned, the title is about how corporate venturing adds value to open innovation. The corporate venturing, the way we define it, is about the creation of new business in the context of existing organizations, where obviously companies can do this internally. When we talk about internal venturing, we talk about internal startups or entrepreneurship. But we more and more see companies doing this externally by collaborating in various ways with external startups. And I think ever since open innovation, I would say even it was already described in the first book that was written by Henry Chesbrough on the topic. And I think it has become more and more important. We see in general that startups are becoming more important. We see that they take a more prominent space in a lot of industries, actually. There are more and more support programs available for startups, and they also become a more and more interesting source of knowledge and innovation for corporates. So when we think about an open innovation strategy, working with external partners, this is one group of partners that is, I think, becoming more and more important, but is not always so well included in the open innovation debate.
And you mentioned this in the chapter, there are many ways to interact and to relate with the startups, no? And from the basic vendor-customer relationship, to even more complex and elaborated and integrated into the future. And corporate venturing is a particular way of connecting. What are the particularities of this kind of relation with the startups, and how do we, as corporations, I'm putting in the place of corporations, can draw value from this kind of relation? No?
Yeah. Well, I think first of all, it's important to understand that there's a lot of various mechanisms that are being used. I mean, you already mentioned the more traditional. I wouldn't even say it's traditional because also this is less common than one would think, but the buyer-supplier relationship. I think already for quite some years, and this is also what many people think about when they hear corporate venturing. We think about corporates making venture capital type of investments in startups, but we can also think about more non-equity partnerships like a co-development agreement. But also think about incubators, think about accelerators, think about companies that are organizing a hackathon or a prize contest, challenges. I mean, there's such a broad spectrum of instruments that firms can employ nowadays. And I think for corporates and this is also what we're trying to get across in this chapter. It is super important to understand how these different strategies differ from one another, but they also have, they target different groups of startups, and they also have different, can have a different purpose. And I think, strategizing a little bit before engaging in one or another startup program. That is one thing that we're also trying to get across is really vital to make the most out of these type of collaborations.
It's true, like connecting to the strategy and looking to the future and understand what's the value that you can draw. And from the startup perspective, do you have any insights or any advice, conclusions from these kind of collaborations? How do they live it?
Yeah, so it's a great question because I think the value from working with startups for corporates has been quite well documented. I think from the startup side, a little bit less so. I think what is mostly striking here is that when you read reports about corporate startup collaborations, startups are not so happy, but many corporates are also less happy. I think there's still a lot of challenges. I think for a startup, it's important also to recognize that you are a mere cog in something bigger. So corporates typically work with a greater set of startups where even sometimes these startups can be competitors for them. So they also, in that sense, use a little bit more of an options approach. Whereas for the startup, it's very often that single corporate partner that they are relying on to further scale up their business. So I think for startups, it's important to understand how do they fit in the bigger picture of the corporate. What is the unique value that they can bring to a problem that the corporate has, or a solution that they are looking for in their innovation funnel, or as part of their innovation strategy.
Yeah, totally agree. We tend to say here that in my team, because we work a lot with this relationship between startups and corporations, that this asymmetry of the size of the relation sometimes doesn't allow to see, as a startup, analyze critically the role of this relation, because you are maybe too enthusiastic about this possible collaboration. But it's important also to do this analysis between the fit and the future of the collaboration, because this is a little bit worse than getting married.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the fit and future are two things. Another thing that I also would like to mention is what I sometimes encounter when I talk to corporates about this is that they haven't really thought it through very well. So, it's more of an opportunistic, let's do something with startups, which is super dangerous also for the startups. Right? Because when there's no clear strategy, like how are we, what do we want to achieve with this collaboration, then, ultimately the startup will suffer more than the corporate.
Totally true. I very much like what you are proposing here. So we're approaching to the end of our conversation. Maybe I would ask, what would be like the main call to action that you want to do for academics and for practitioners, both corporates and startups? So your 3 call to actions: academia, corporates, startups.
Okay. So I think for academia, I think it's really, we need a better understanding of the different strategies and how they are best being used in order to be most effective. And I'm saying that from both parts of the relationship. As I mentioned, what is best documented is corporates investing in startups and how these investments benefit their innovation and firm performance. But we don't know a lot of performance outcomes, both for corporates and for startups, for many of the other strategies, and also not how they relate to one another. I very much think that we also need to look at this as a portfolio where you do not want to do everything in an incubator. Sometimes you need a hackathon. Sometimes you need to make an investment, but really how and when to balance these would be one thing that I would like to see more research on. For corporates, I think a call to action for me would really be to first of all take a step back and review the rationale behind working with startups. Why are you doing this? Is it, and I'm just talking about 2 extremes here, but are you looking for innovations to fuel your innovation agenda, to incorporate them in your innovation funnel, to create new products and services for your current market? Or are you trying to, or are you doing it with the intent to establish an ecosystem around your organization? And these innovation venturing and ecosystem venturing are very different outcomes, and they also have an effect on what you're doing with whom and in what way. So that would be for the corporates. For the startups, yeah, I would really urge them to yeah, to you know, you're saying the honeymoon or the marriage, right? I mean, I think as a startup, you know, getting in that corporate partner, that seems like a goal in itself. And but I would say, you know, be yeah, just be aware of some of the caveats in the relationship that may occur. And yeah, the due diligence needs to come from both ends.
Be critical, no, of the
Be critical,
relationship.
yes, absolutely.
Very, very interesting. And I would like to dig deeper into the ecosystem mentoring, which is an interesting term I never heard, but this has been, as always with these chapters, but short and sweet and very interesting and insightful. Thank you very much, Vareska. We recommend all practitioners to read this book, this chapter, because it's very, very particularly interesting in terms of the possibilities of relationship with the startups, which is a very hot stuff right now. And thank you very much for your time, Vareska.
Well, thank you again for having me.
And keep enjoying, and we will see you next week, opening the new section of the book, because your chapter is the last chapter of this section 3, which is open innovation among firms. Thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.